Good morning. Let's talk today and for a few days, few lessons, two or three, about pioneers. And the first thing to think about is kind of going back to what we studied right before school closed for the virus. And we were talking about our country. Here's the United States of America. And what it looked like originally, before it was all filled up with people and roads and houses and buildings. It had trees and lakes and mountains, deserts, not a lot of people. Who were the people that were here? We, again, were interrupted by the virus, but we had been studying about the Native Americans. That they were here and they lived in long houses and wigwams and teepees and long houses and adobe. And here they were. And they get discovered right from over here. From the east comes explorers. And they discover what they call the New World. In one area over here on the east, a lot of people landed. We've got Columbus, we've got the Pilgrims, and we've got, others that had heard from the original first explorers, and they came too. And so the east here started getting filled up. Cities popping up, more and more people coming, wanting to make a new start, see the new land that was reported to be so beautiful and fruitful. And yeah, it was getting kind of crowded over here. And so the president, one of the early presidents, Thomas Jefferson, he, with the government, purchased a big section of land over here towards the west. So we've got north, east, south, and west. So this eastern side was getting pretty crowded. So Thomas Jefferson bought from France a big section of land over here. And it was called the Louisiana Purchase. And he sent two men to lead a group to explore the new area. And here they are. Their names were Lewis and Clark. Those were their last names. And Lewis's first name was Meriwether. Meriwether Lewis. And he was the president's secretary. And the other guy, William Clark, he was Meriwether Lewis's friend. And the president said, would you two go and explore this new purchase, this new addition to our country in the West, and see what's there? Can we travel through it? What do you find? Can you get all the way through? All right, so they set off. And they had about 40 men and supplies, and they also brought some things like beads and trinkets so they could trade with the Native Americans. Because surely, let's go back to this map, surely they're going to encounter some of the Indians along the way, some of the Plains Indians and some of the Northwest Coast Indians. And they'll need to make peace with them and ask passage and learn from them about how to survive out there. So they started, let's talk about these rivers. This big river that goes through like this is the Mississippi. And so not much had been explored. This all areas unexplored, part of the Louisiana Purchase. This river is called the Ohio. Okay. And we live about over in here somewhere. This river is called the Missouri. I think this is called the Arkansas. And look at this guy. This is the Snake River. And this is famous Columbia, right? Goes all the way over to the Pacific Ocean. And we have the Atlantic here. All the explorers came. There were some who came over here early on too that we're not going to touch on today. Yeah, and here's the Pacific. And these are the Rockies. So the Louisiana Purchase went from the Mississippi to the Rockies. So they set off from a city in Missouri here called St. Louis. And they're going to go, and they encounter so many things. There was one more river too that I wanted to highlight. This one here, Yellowstone. It goes down like this. And on their journey, where are they? Here, I'm going to represent them with this canoe boat. I would guess they needed canoes to go through and along the river, right? They actually had to carry their boats up over here in Montana for a really long time around an area called the Great Falls. Not our Great Falls here in Maryland and Virginia. Imagine having to carry those boats. And they're going along. And they meet in Native Americans along the way. And in one of the tribes, the Shoshone, they met a woman named Sacagawea. She's very famous because she helped, traveled with Lewis and Clark and their men. She was an interpreter, means she could talk to the Native Americans and help them understand each other. She taught them what plants were okay to eat. She helped them keep peace and trade with the Native Americans. She was really, really valuable. They had to spend the winter with some of the Indians because it actually took them 1.5 years for this trip. 1.5 years. Wow. That's quite some time. But they do finally make it. I'm going to show this picture again. Here they are looking out at the Pacific Ocean. Here's a little mini. I'll stick over here when they make it. And then it took them only 6 months to get back. So that's a lot less. And they knew the way. And so they were, some of the first, the earliest explorers into the western side of our country. Then another group, so once exploration started heading in the westward direction, then there were a lot of people who wanted to get more space and more room and felt crowded in the eastern side and wanted land to grow their crops and raise their cattle. And so it was a really big time in our country. People traveling west, a lot of people starting out on that adventure. Here I have a page that says, Westward Ho! That means let's go west. And they would form these trains of wagons, staying together and crossing the dangerous territory. And so I have here a little picture of a covered wagon. They would travel in these covered wagons. And they started here in Missouri as well, an area called Independence. And they traveled through, encountering all kinds of animals and Native Americans, and having to trade and figure out how to be safe, and starting their homes and finding a good place for growing their crops and building their log cabin and settling down. And I thought it's pretty cool that so this trail that they would take was called the Oregon Trail, heading out like this from Independence. I thought this was so neat. Look at these people. They have kind of almost like a half covered wagon. Just the wheels and the cart. Look how hard they have to work to pull. Travel all that distance. And this one here shows, look at the children. The children would have to carry one, and they had to carry supplies in here. Blankets, cooking things, maybe even the baby. This one shows, oh wow, look at that girl. And her family coming behind her. Maybe if you couldn't afford a covered wagon, you had to have one or more of these carts. And here we have some people setting out. Yeah, these people are pulling with their hands, and these ones have the covered wagon. It said in one thing I read that the covered wagon was shaped like a boat, curving up on the ends, so that as they traveled along, things didn't spill out. They could just kind of rock along. Wow, I would love to be riding there like that. Here's another close-up of a covered wagon. Look at all the things they can attach to the sides. They had to get creative in how to carry their things. Wow. Then, there was another man that helped. Early explorer of our country. His name was Daniel Boone. And he lived over here in Pennsylvania and eventually explored Kentucky. And he was really a hard worker, and he loved the outdoors. He's a lot like me, like that. He loved the outdoors. Where's my Daniel Boone? Here he is. Put him on the map here near Kentucky. And he could hunt and track, and he actually learned from the Indians. So much so that he started to dress like the Indians. So look, he's got coonskin cap. He's got the kind of leather with the fringe that the Native Americans would wear. And he really got into it. He really loved it. He was really good with his rifle. He was known as a sharpshooter and would win contests. So yeah, I have a really cool page here showing him. And he was good at just interacting with the Native Americans and getting along with them. Another famous story is called Johnny Appleseed. I'm sad I don't have my book, which I get from the library. I'd read to you about he also on the eastern side here was known for planting a lot of apple trees. And there's a lot of question, truth or legend with him, but it's a neat story. He's got a pot on his head. And another one is called Paul Bunyan. Now he is a made-up character, and it's a giant blue ox named Babe. But because back then there was so much to explore, so much unknown, so much hard work, that they would make up stories about men who could do just superhero-like things. Paul Bunyan could cut down trees so fast. Look, he's got a tree over his shoulder, showing him really big and really strong. So they would make up these stories because of this really big time in our country. I wanted to also highlight the chores. I think I'll go into the children's chores in our next lesson. All right, so for now, I'd like you to watch the video on the log cabin craft that I made. And, we're familiar with these log cabin, how to put it together, right? Because we have Lincoln logs in our classroom. So you can see when they're cutting down their trees, making a space and clearing it out so that they can live. Oh, I like this picture of the covered wagon as well. Okay, well, there's some things to think about. The westward expansion of our country. If there are any of these figures you want to look up and go into more detail about, I'd love to hear what you learn or discover about the figures at this time. I didn't cover the Moldy family. That was a book from the library I would have read you. But they're, another family that moved west. And the Laura Ingalls family, I'm going to send you a YouTube story time tomorrow about just a short little kind of abbreviated book about her family. These are real people. We've got real, some question there. The Moldy family, actually real family. Lewis and Clark, definitely real. Paul Bunyan, he's made up. All right. I'll see you later. Bye.